Okay, so we're going to keep working on our value study here, and keep building up all of these layers, going back into the nose now. I'm using violet at this point. Going with a little bit of red to help increase the value. Now, if you're just tuning in and you didn't see the video with the first half of the drawing, go back and watch that so you understand why we're doing what we're doing here. I'm going to go over the red with the blue, the violet blue. Again, just helping build in those values. See how that just darkens up so nicely, and it gives it a little bit more darker value than it would if I had just used the violet alone. Going back over to the violet, getting some of these lighter areas here. Now there are a lot of like little hairs on the muzzle, little white hairs on the muzzle here, and so I need to be careful in how I put down my color so that I don't lose all of my whites. And I'm going to want to darken up the value in the mouth. Sharpen this guy up a little bit. This is the violet blue. I'm using the very tip, that sharp pointy part of the tip of the pencil there to draw in some individual hairs. Here I'm going back into the hairs on the top lip because there's some white hairs coming over onto his lip, and so I'm defining those by using the darker color to come in between them. Okay, I'm going to come in here and do some blending with my blending stump and get some of these colors mixed in a little bit better and work on adjusting values once I have the colors mixed on the paper. You can see a little bit better how things are going to look overall and make my adjustments from there. Okay, now there's a little bit of a lighter spot here helping to define this crease in the nose. I definitely want under the nose where the light's hitting a little bit lighter. Under the nostril. Okay, so some of these darker areas I'm going to go back in with some red. So I don't know if my microphone is picking up some of the background noise or not, but my son is evidently having a good day and he's been singing in the shower and singing as he gets ready. I am a subscriber to the idea that it's better to get some things done than to have them done perfectly. So I'm going to focus on the drawing. The tutorial sound may not be the world's greatest. I apologize for that. But I am happy that my son is happy. And bringing in some of these individual hairs. I'm going to come back in with the violet now. Lost what I erased here that I wanted lighter. Try and grab that out. I've kind of lost my whites there. I wasn't quite careful enough. But we'll make the best of it. Okay, moving away a little bit from the mouth. I'm gonna come over here. There's like a colored spot down here that's fairly dark. It's in shadow, plus it's a darker color of the fur. So I'll get that guy in there. Some red, now some of the violet blue. And again, see how those indentations there and up here as well just really are so helpful with maintaining those white areas. I probably should have done that here as well. That would have helped. And back in with the violet. I've got a pretty nice side of one half of his face going here. It's looking pretty good. Let me bring the blending stump in here and get these colors mixed up a little bit better. Okay, so I'm going to move back up over here and start working that side down. Okay, I'm going to sharpen this a little bit more before I start mapping in the eye. Let me get this point sharpened a little bit better. Pencil sharpener does the weirdest shapes. I think that should work. So I'm going to start putting in some of these shadows and marking off where my lights are. Again, wanting to be very precise. Paying a lot of attention to my reference photo and where everything is on the reference photo, and making sure I'm putting them in the right spots on my drawing. Okay, it's looking pretty good. I want to darken up. This is pretty dark in here, so I want to put some red over to help increase that value again. Sharpen my violet blue a little bit more. Puff that guy away. Pressing a little bit harder now over the red where I really want to increase that value. Go. Oh, that was the violet, not the violet blue. Sorry about that. Now this is the violet blue. Back in with the violet. Get that a little sharper. Oh, goodness. Pencil sharpener just pooped all over everything. Get into some of this lighter area around the eye. All right, I'm going to start working over into this ear. Get this guy done. And this is a lighter spot right here, as is this right here. So I'm going to make sure to work around those. And then I'll deal with those once I get the darker sections filled in. Let's see, I'm just looking at my map here. This is a lighter section here, as is this. All right, coming in with my red. This is a lighter section in here. And it's got a darker section next to it. Okay, so in with my violet blue, building up those values again. Starting to pay a little bit more attention to the direction of the fur and getting my pencil strokes to, especially on the sides of the ear here where you can see a little bit more of the texture of the fur. I want my pencil strokes to emulate that texture. So how I get that is that there's some variation of light and dark in there, and that creates the depth and the illusion that that light is filtering down into the hairs, the individual hairs, and so it shows instead of, like, you know, a dense coating, it shows that there are individual fibers making up that texture. And here comes one of my doggies. I'll switch back over to my Violet. Sorry, my dog wants into his kennel, which my working surface is on top of, so. So the lovely thing about crate training is when you get it to the point where they ask to go in on their own, and you can leave the door open and they can just go in and out as they please, so that on the occasions where you do need to shut the door, they're not upset or bothered by it. Very glad to have gotten all my dogs to that level of crate training. It's not a big deal to them at all to spend time in their kennels. Just working on building up the layers to increase the value in these darker sections. My dog who's in his kennel right now is my bulldog, and he's not as bad as most bulldogs. He's a mix between English bulldog, and he's got like just enough pit in there to make it so he's not quite as snorty as most English bulldogs, but he's still a little snorty, and so you can probably hear him making his little snorts and snuffles and grunts down there. I call him my piggle bear because he sounds like a little pig half the time. And his name is Pancake. If you look on my website, he's the, I have a couple paintings of him up on there, or drawings. One's a painting, one's a drawing. I have one where he's sleeping with my son, and they're snuggled up together. It's really sweet. It's one of my favorites that I've done because it has a couple of my favorite beings in it. And then I have another one where he was learning to swim. He's always been a little bit afraid of the water, which is probably smart considering he's a very bulky boy, being mostly English bulldog. And so we had been teaching him how to swim, and he had a life vest on, and we had this little squishy toy that he could only use in the pool. And I got a photo of him swimming to the squishy toy, and he had just caught it, and he has the most terrified and anxious look on his face, but also his determined, I'm gonna get it, bulldog face on. So I had to draw a picture of that because it's hilarious. He's so Pancake. Once we got him to the point where he knew how to swim and was safe, to be able to get in and out of the pool and everything. I was hoping he would, once he had the confidence built up, that he would take to it and enjoy it more, because he's got some arthritis in his back legs and could use that exercise without the you know, the impact. And so I was hoping he would take to it more than he ended up doing, but he's still saying no thank you. I know how to do it, and I will do it if you ask me to, and push the issue, but I prefer not to. So I'm letting him choose that. He doesn't really swim too much anymore. Okay, so just want to be careful of these lighter areas here. I kind of went into this one a little bit more while I was talking and not focusing. Nature of the business. Get me talking about my dogs and I'm off and running. Let me sharpen this up a little bit more. Tip on there. Alright, I'm going to go in and get some of this on the eye, work a little bit more here. Using a firm pressure, but I'm not pushing as hard as I could because I don't want to press down the fibers of the paper too much, because I'm going to want to put more layers up over this. Starting to shape up for us here. Sharpen the violet back up. Normally I would not sharpen my pencil over my drawing like I am right now, but I just want you guys to be able to see what I'm doing and how that looks. Color just a little bit into this light area. Bring in some red over here. This is getting a little too blue. And back over it with the violet. We have just some little hints of eyelashes. It's maybe a little too small to get that in there. But you can just see the reflection of the dog's eyelashes kind of peeking over into that catch light. And if this were bigger, I would define those more, but I think if I tried to define them at this size, it's gonna just look weird. Okay. And under here, it's like a medium value. Okay. I'm bringing in my black to put those finishing touches on the eye. As right now you can see the difference between the two eyes. This one is much more defined than this one. The black is going to help kind of finish that off right there. And I think I'm going to add in a touch of the black up here because this is pretty dark. Alright, and definitely underneath the eyelid here. In the corner of this eye. Get the pupil in here. And I already see that's making a big difference. Use black very sparingly, but when you do, it has a big impact. Just a touch under here. Okay, and then I'm going to take my blending stop and come up into the hair up here. And get these colors blended up. Again, being careful to avoid the eye. because I want to keep my detail there nice and crisp. Poor little stump. I'm bending the heck out of it. But in order to mix the colors here on the paper, you do need to apply a fair bit of pressure. You're basically smushing them all together and down into the fibers of the paper so that none of the paper is showing, and the binders of the colors have all mixed together, or the binders have been all smushed together so that the pigments mix. And you want to save this part until you're just about done with that section, because once you smush those layers of the fibers of the paper, then you can't do a whole lot more with it. Okay, so put a little bit more, making sure I'm working with violet here. Put a little bit more violet down on some of these areas, and I think I'm going to go in with my kneaded eraser and lift out. And I've just smushed or pinched this into a shape that works well for me for coming in and lifting out some sections to help get the shininess look of his fur. Lift. What did I do? There it is. I want to lift this section out just a little bit more than it is. I got it covered up, and in here just a little bit. Okay. All right, so back in with the violet down here. We're just moving right along with this guy. And so these whisker lines, because the tool that I used was a little too big, they're a little too wide. The indentation is a little too wide. So to fix that, I'll go in later with a really sharp point on my pencil and fill in the edges a little bit so that they look more appropriate. Our little fluffy guy is coming to life here. Some red and get some of these darker areas built up a little more. Now I want to pay attention to the bone structure. So you have like under the eye right here, and then it kind of goes in, and then the cheekbone is coming across here. So it's like a wave. The fur, the dog's skin is going like this, and so that's what the fur is doing too. And so it's coming up over this cheekbone and then back down around it and around to the side of his face. And so I need to try and show that by how I'm shading. And so you can keep in mind that that's what's happening here while you're looking at the photo, and then just kind of understanding that that's what's happening, and how light works will help you put your values down to create that effect and kind of exaggerate it just a little bit, so that it works really well. The illusion works really well. So how you put your pencil strokes down to emulate the fur curving around this area, how you increase and decrease your value to help sell that illusion. All of these things work together to create the illusion of 3D form. So the more you understand about how light interacts with an object, the better you can emulate that effect. All my dogs are in here. It looks like my two younger ones are about to play, so make it a little noisy. Everybody's having a good day today. I'm going to darken this little bit under the chin up a little bit more than it actually is, because I think it will look good that way. Just kind of help his little face pop out some. Back in with some red. And then some violet. And now I'm going to blend. Blend right here, just a little bit, right there. And so I'm going to use a little bit of the color that's on the blending stump to help do these soft spots that are in here on his muzzle. And you see how they help me just put down a little bit of color, but there aren't really any pencil strokes or anything, so it makes it really soft. I'll clean it up a little bit with an eraser in a minute. Need this just a little bit darker right there. And make sure his chin is nicely defined. I'm just kind of doing a lot of comparing now that I'm almost to the end of this. I'm doing some comparing and making sure that everything looks the way I want it. If there are any adjustments I need to make, whether it's exactly like the photo or I just think it will work better for my drawing in general. I'm going to go in with some black here on the nose and the nostrils because those are pretty dark here too. Just kind of help define this a little bit better. And maybe just a little bit in here where these shadows are under his muzzle and this bottom lip. Okay, and then for the whiskers, I'm going to get my pencil nice and sharp. Okay, look at that guy. And I'm going to go in here and just take out a little bit of how white it is and thin these down some. So it's more the suggestion of the whisker rather than this stark white. Okay, so I think that's done. Hopefully that helped you guys. It helps you kind of understand just how much value plays a role, and that while it's nice to pick the right colors, and it's certainly nice to have every color you could possibly have of colored pencil, it's definitely not necessary. There's a lot you can do just mixing colors on your paper with a limited set. I also could have done this drawing in its realistic colors with my limited set as well. It's just that I wanted to demonstrate how much value plays a part in the overall process. So I hope you found this valuable.